Whenever you publish a blog post you've worked really hard on, obviously you hope it will be read by as many people as possible, right? The problem is there are about 5.8 million blog posts published every day, so you're not alone. And when your audience or potential audience is trying to decide which items of content to click on, there are two main things that influence their decision. One of them is the feature image, but that's a subject for a whole other video. The other is the headline. Your headline is basically a one-sentence ad or promo for your blog post, so if it's lousy, there's a good chance no one will ever read it. Hi, I'm Noya. I'm all about creating standout content that helps businesses grow. And in this video, I'll talk about 12 different techniques you can use to write FOMO headlines your readers won't be sorry they clicked on. There's also a free ebook version of this video, so if you want to check that out, I've linked to it below. Okay, let's get to it. With infinite content choices 24/7, including millions of blog posts that are published and promoted daily, it's no wonder we've evolved into time-poor, content-fatigued creatures, which has forced us to become skilled online scanners who can determine within split seconds whether we want to click on something or not. For the millions of publishers, bloggers and brands competing against each other in an ongoing battle for a limited attention, the challenge isn't just to attract any random passers-by, especially in the case of paid promotions, but carefully targeted audiences they particularly want to reach. So in an era where online content has to be distilled into purposeful, single-sentence promos that compel fussy online scanners to screech to a halt and click, the headline is everything. Here's a really quick overview on why it's so important to nail your headlines, and then I'll get into the 12 techniques I use when I write my own headlines. The quantity of content online is so crazy, it's transformed most of us into content snobs. If the hook that's supposed to convince us to click on something doesn't manage to do it in an instant, we move on to the next item with ruthless indifference. That means that the headline is often the only opportunity for content creators and marketers to convert a quick scan into a click. But did you know that while 8 out of 10 people read a headline, only 2 out of 10 will read further? That means a blog post headline is at least as important to its success as the post itself. Some people argue it's even more important, like renowned direct marketer Drayton Bird and legendary ad man David Ogilvy, who have both suggested that headlines should be written with the Pareto principle in mind, also known as the 80-20 rule. Headlines, according to them, are so crucial to selling your post that you should be spending 80% of your time writing the perfect headline in order to generate maximum readership. Or, in other words, the headline is essentially an advertisement for a post, and it needs to communicate a few key things instantly so that it not only appeals to the right people, but that they also feel compelled to click on it for fear of missing out on something that might be truly worthwhile. I've personally never compared the amount of time I spend writing a post versus the amount of time I spend writing the headlines, so I'm not sure whether it's an 80-20 split, but I definitely spend a lot of time on my headlines because I know just how important they are. The thing is, although a headline is key to delivering people to the destination page, it's the content itself that interests them. So if the headline fails to deliver on its implied value, people will bounce right off the destination page, which is not only bad for your site's SEO, but it also earns you a reputation as a clickbait offender, and that's not a title any respectable content creator should aspire to. Writing headlines that compel the right people to click on them has therefore become both a science and an art. It involves more than just playing around with what sounds good, although that's an important factor. It requires a calculated approach, proven techniques, an understanding of best practices in writing for the web, and a commitment to making sure a headline reflects the actual content that awaits within the post itself, so that readers feel rewarded and never cheated for clicking through in the first place. So that's my spiel on why it's so important to nail your blog post headlines. And now, here are some techniques and best practices to consider if you want to craft headlines that are effective, not only because they're highly clickable, but also because they prioritize reader engagement after they've clicked through to read your post. Number 1, be relevant. Relevance is important because it helps readers figure out very quickly if your post is worth reading. Remember, people's time is scarce and they're very selective about what they'll take the trouble to read. So if it's not immediately apparent to them that the content on the page is exactly what the headline implied it would be, or that there's a clear benefit, reward, or other worthwhile reason for reading your post, they probably won't. Number 2, be specific about the subject matter and the intended audience. When you promote a piece of content, your aim shouldn't be for the whole world to read it, because let's face it, it's not going to interest everyone on the planet. Rather, your aim should be for the headline to appeal to your target audience. And one way to appeal specifically to them is by being super precise about who the post is for in the headline itself. For example, Felix might write a post titled "The Most Incredible Discovery Since Sliced Bread" and get a huge click-through rate, because who wouldn't want to find out about such an incredible discovery, right? The problem is that the bounce rate on that post would probably be phenomenally high, because most of the clickers have no interest in learning about a newly discovered yeast accelerator that can cut the production time of bread by half. Yes, Felix in this example owns a bakery. It might be super interesting for baking enthusiasts or chefs, but the non-bakers and non-chef readers would realize within seconds that the post isn't interesting to them at all and move off the page faster than you can say sourdough, and they'd probably be quite deflated about it too. But had the headline read, "Bakers Rejoice, newly developed yeast accelerator stands to half the production time of bread," it's highly likely that only people who care about baking bread would bother clicking through to read the post in the first place, and undoubtedly ooh and ah with excitement while reading it. Here's another example. If you came across a post titled "What You Need to Know About the Top 5 Fish Everyone Loves to Eat," there are several possible angles that may have been used to write the post, but not all of them may apply to you based on your specific interests. For example, it may be about how to prepare and cook these 5 types of fish, which would interest people searching for recipes or cooking tips. Or it could also be about tips on how to catch these 5 types of fish, which would interest fishing enthusiasts. Or it could be about the health benefits of eating these 5 types of fish, which would interest people who are looking for tips on health, nutrition, or dietary information. And finally, it could simply list interesting trivia about these 5 types of fish, which would interest people searching for scientific trivia about fish, or maybe even marine biologists. If you write a headline that's too general, it might be overlooked by the audience it was intended for, because its specific relevance to them wasn't specified clearly enough in the headline. Or certain people may click on it because they think the post might interest them, but bounce right off as soon as they realize it doesn't, which isn't great for your website's SEO. A more specific way to word the headline so that each audience would instantly know whether the post is relevant to them would be, for the cooks, mouth-watering recipes featuring the top 5 fish everyone loves to eat. For the fishing enthusiasts, everything you need to know about where and how to catch the top 5 fish everyone loves to eat. For the health conscious, nutritional benefits of the top 5 fish everyone loves to eat. And for the trivia buffs, interesting facts you may not know about the top 5 fish everyone loves to eat. So the tip here is that headlines that indicate at least to some extent who the post is suitable for, as well as what the post is about, not only boost the likelihood of a click, but also that the post will actually be read because the content is relevant exactly to those who click through to it. Number 3, be truthful. Make sure your content delivers on the headline's promise in order to maximize dwell time. People are curious creatures by nature, so sensationalist or juicy headlines that play on our psychological fear of missing out on something that's potentially a must-know may earn the writer a click, but most of us also hate being fooled into doing something we might have otherwise avoided had we been presented with truthful and accurate information. So using clickbait in headlines is generally counterproductive for 2 main reasons. Number 1, it almost always backfires, with readers bouncing off the page feeling annoyed and misled, resulting in high bounce rates and low dwell time, which can reflect very poorly on your site's ranking in SERPs. The more accurately your headline describes the content that awaits readers once they click on it, the less chance they will be disappointed by the content they actually find, and the more inclined they will be to spend time engaging with it. Number 2, it can damage your online reputation, because if you consistently write headlines that fail to live up to their promise in the post itself, people might eventually avoid clicking on any headline that is attributed to you as its author or to your blog, ruining your credibility as a reliable source of content. I've personally seen cases where marketers use the term clickbait to describe headlines that get clicked, almost as a badge of honor, ignoring what the word really means and just casually using it as a term that's synonymous with highly clickable headlines. But although the term does imply high clickability, it's wrong to refer to it as a standard we should aspire to, because by definition, it's a term that implies a shady approach to writing. Writing irresistible headlines that deliver on their promise is the mark of clever writers with integrity who care about creating a great user experience. Writing irresistible headlines that bait people to click through to irrelevant or poorly produced content, otherwise known as clickbait, is the mark of conniving writers who have no qualms about misleading readers purely to boost page views. The reason clickbait is always bad is already mentioned in the word itself, because it's about baiting people to click on something that they may not have clicked on had they known in advance that the content that awaited them didn't satisfy their expectations or their search intent. So keep in mind that a great content creator is someone who can not only create great, worthwhile content, but who also writes headlines that sum it up and sell it both irresistibly and accurately. So there's no chance readers could ever feel like they were duped into clicking it once they see the content itself. Number 4. Use a relevant keyword or search phrase to help your target audience zero in on your blog post. The use of keywords in headlines is arguably no longer as essential as it used to be, because Google's algorithms now look at the content on the page itself as well, not just the headline, to determine its relevance to a particular search query. But in some cases, using a keyword or a highly searchable phrase that's trending among your target audience can work wonders if you want to attract a very specific niche. Think of a keyword or search phrase as a beacon that helps people zero in on the precise post they're looking for, and use your common sense to determine whether using it in your headline is likely to boost its appeal for your target audience. Moz's Rand Fishkin talks about the importance of considering viral appeal versus searcher intent when writing headlines. If your goal is to drive lots of traffic on social media, or if the subject matter is lighthearted with high entertainment value, then a creative headline written with potential virality in mind will probably be most effective. But if you're offering informative, educational content that people might be specifically searching for, and you want it to rank highly, then searcher intent should be a top priority, and you should consider writing a more search-optimized headline, which includes strategically chosen keywords and phrases. Number 5, be entertaining by upping the level of intrigue, humor, or wit. Many copywriting experts warn against trying to be clever when writing headlines, suggesting that using metaphors, analogies, cuteness, or cryptic nuances don't work as well as writing something straightforward. But there's a difference between trying to do all those clever things badly, resulting in cringeworthy headlines that actually turn people off, and doing all of those things really well. Maybe inexperienced writers might struggle with this technique, which is totally understandable, so they should stick with other effective techniques instead. But if you're a seasoned writer who can pull it off with relative ease, then go for it. A genuinely creative or entertaining headline is a welcome breath of fresh air in a sea of repetitive, dull, and predictable headlines. Just be sure to keep the intrigue, wit, or humour honest, relevant, and classy, so it can't be misconstrued as clickbait. Number 6, leverage urgency, trending topics, and newsworthiness. There are always new happenings and fads popping up in the news or in popular culture, and if they're relevant to your brand or business, you could potentially leverage those trending topics by creating new posts or even repurposing old ones that tie back to your own offering and generate renewed interest thanks to the timely relevance of the refreshed headlines. Number 7, solve a problem or teach something. If you imply that you have a solution to something by phrasing the headline as a question or as a how-to tip style post, chances are that it'll be particularly appealing to the people who need that problem solved. But given the sheer volume of content being published all the time, it's likely that whatever solution you're offering has probably already been written about many times before. So you need to try to find a unique angle for your version and make a point of highlighting this unique angle in your headline. For example, you could write a post titled "How to Set a Formal Dinner Table." But you'd stand out a lot more with "How to Set a Formal Dinner Table Fit for a Downton Abbey Crawley." The Downton Abbey TV series, centred on the aristocratic Crawley family, for whom dinner is always a formal occasion, was watched by more than 120 million viewers worldwide, including yours truly. So for anyone searching for tips on how to set a formal dinner table, chances are they'll be more drawn to a post that references the super popular TV show than to a typical headline that sounds just like 100 other versions of how to set a formal dinner table. Even if some of your potential readers haven't got a clue what Downton Abbey is, the added twist of using it in the headline makes it sound more interesting than it would be without it. Another way to boost the appeal of a headline for a post that offers a solution to something is to highlight a clear and ideally unique benefit. For example, you could write something like "How to Cure a Headache with Acne Pain Relief Tablets," which is relevant to someone who's got a headache but may not compel them enough to click on it if they haven't heard of or have any inclination to buy acne pain relief tablets. Or you could explain the advantage of using acne pain relief tablets in the headline itself, which may be more compelling because the person with the headache would want to find out more about that unique advantage. For example, "How Acne Pain Relief's fast-acting formula can cure your headache with absolutely zero drowsiness." Number 8, use a numbered list. Love 'em or hate 'em, list posts work. Probably because in a world of endless content, there's something comforting in knowing that a topic you want to read about has been conveniently summarized for you into a finite and manageable number of facts or tips. HubSpot's Dan Lyons consulted a few shrinks to weigh in on the psychology behind the appeal of list posts. Some of the reasons they offered included the notion that they restore order in an otherwise chaotic world, or that someone else who is already knowledgeable about the topic has narrowed the points down to the most important ones you need to know, rather than you having to figure it out for yourself. The nice thing about writing headlines for list posts is that it requires minimal effort because they tend to practically write themselves. Still, if you can apply one of the other tips listed in this video to a standard and usually plain list post title, it could boost its FOMO factor even more. For example, instead of saying 12 tips for writing great headlines, you could say 12 ways to write FOMO blog headlines your readers won't be sorry they clicked on. Number 9, pose a question, use controversy, or try to trigger an emotional reaction. Posing a headline as a question or a statement that suggests controversy or intrigue can really make a reader sit up and take notice, especially if it happens to strike a chord. This tip isn't always appropriate because not all topics lend themselves to stirring emotion, but if it is appropriate to write a headline that triggers emotion, then it stands a good chance of being clicked by someone who feels strongly about it. For example, 5 experts weigh in on why the Game of Thrones finale was the worst ending to a TV series ever. Or why the world would be a better place if we all quit social media immediately, etc. Number 10, add an irresistible hint or benefit. There's a right way and a wrong way to use this technique. The wrong way is the classic clickbait style headline that opens with something dramatic or sensationalist and continues with a shameless hook like "You won't believe what happened next" or "What happened next will blow your mind." While many people still fall for this type of headline, more savvy readers know better than to click on something that will most likely be a really trashy read. But the concept of writing a regular headline and then adding a mini teaser or bonus at the end can be extremely effective at piquing people's curiosity. As long as your irresistible teaser refers to something specific in your post without being too cryptic or overly sensationalist, then your headline will be deliciously intriguing while remaining perfectly respectable. For example, how to bake the ultimate chocolate brownie. Hint, chocolate has nothing to do with it. Number 11, use data. If you've ever wondered how your headline would fare if it included a statistic backed by research as opposed to not including it, wonder no more. Groove's Alex Turnbull found the answer by comparing the simple test that increased our referrals with the simple test that increased our referrals by 30%, and found that the headline that included the statistic performed 40% better than the one without it. That's an amazing result. So if you're writing a post that includes relevant data, or if there's an existing research-backed statistic you can reference in your post to help make your point, consider incorporating it into your headline to turbo boost its click appeal. Finally, number 12, consider the headline's length. As it turns out, people don't just scan blog posts. Apparently they scan headlines too. There have been many studies on how the length of a headline impacts on its effectiveness and click appeal, and the consensus seems to be that the parts of the headline that resonate most with readers when they're in scanning mode are the first and last 3 words, suggesting that the ideal length of a headline is 6 words. But since it's difficult to write certain headlines when limited to just 6 words, copy and marketing coach Non-Tenant suggests that rather than focusing on counting the words, you should focus on making each word count, which is advice I wholeheartedly agree with. In my humble opinion, although headline length matters in the sense that you don't want to make it excessively long because it will look and sound ridiculous, and in general, less is more, what matters most is the way it's written, because in the end, what compels people to click or not click is the psychological effect of the technique used to write the headline. Humans react instinctively to something that truly interests them, so a headline can be highly compelling whether it contains 6 words or 16. So there you have it, 12 techniques to write effective FOMO blog post headlines that readers won't be sorry they clicked on. And I'll leave you with this final thought. Next time you publish a post, make sure that your headline not only turns heads because it's so appealing to your target audience, but that it's also an accurate reflection of the content that's waiting for the readers on the destination page to maximize their engagement post-click.